inevitable. Look, all relationships, all marriages end. All of them. They end in death or divorce, but they all end. So the question is, it's one of the only things in the world that you say, I really hope this ends in death, But it's true. Like, you really hope your marriage ends in death. But 56% of them currently end in divorce. And that's not accounting for the percent of them that don't end in divorce, but end in misery, that end in staying together with someone who you're very unhappy with, who doesn't love you or make you feel like the best version of yourself, and you don't make them feel particularly good, but you're just staying together for the kids or because you don't want to give half your shit away. And I don't know that that's a win.
Hey, good morning, guys. Welcome to the Vision Podcast. I hope it's morning. Well, it's morning for me. So good morning to you. Good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is. Good middle of the night. We're going to keep this one semi-short and sweet, but it's a big topic. So the reason I'm keeping it short and sweet is it's just a very broad topic. I wanted to touch on it because I saw this interview. And, at this point, I don't think there's anybody who can kind of speak to divorce where people can relate and hopefully not get either turned off, offended, or just put their head in the sand and don't want to hear about it. And this is not because I want to speak to, I'm divorced twice. So I'm not coming from a point of, I know what I'm talking about. I'm coming from a point of having experienced it, wanting to be able to share some of those experiences and insights with people that are maybe not married and considering getting married, or even just in a long-term relationship and considering what happens in those relationships that causes separation. And if you are married, causes divorce. So check this out, and we're going to comment on several different aspects of it.
I think in relationships, you've got to be prepared to work on the things that need work. And that's, again, it's not always the fun thing to do. Look, we don't have a lot of free time with our spouse or partner. Like, we don't have, Saturday comes around, the last thing you want to do is have a lot of heartfelt discussions and a deep talk and upset her rather than, have her feel in the mood to be romantic with you. But you know what, man, long-term happiness is more important than that.
When people do arrive in your office, even if it's not disconnection because that's not front of mind, that was what happened previously, not what has happened now. What are the most common reasons for divorce that you're finding?
Infidelity is huge. Infidelity is a giant sign that the relationship is really over, that you're no longer finding the connection that you once had or that you want with a romantic partner, with your primary romantic partner. So that's a huge, huge pice of it.
And who's that? I do know who's the most common infidelity partner. Who are people cheating with?
Coworkers. Let me say it's changed in 23 years. So 23 years ago, when I started doing this job, Facebook was really like it hadn't even started, I don't think, really. So, and there's a chapter in my book called, if we were going to invent an infidelity generating machine, it would be called Facebook. I would change that now to say it would be called Instagram, but it's still a meta company. So sorry, Mark. The reality is, or congratulations, Mark, I'm not sure which. The truth is, we now have conversations with people we have absolutely no business having conversations with, and we have entry points that are entirely benign, that we have the permission of our own conscience to do. Like when you used to have to go to a bar and pick up a woman, if you wanted to cheat on your wife, or you had to at the office, you had to risk the HR complaint that came with that. That's different. But now, you're on Instagram, nobody's looking at their phone in a high moment of their life. It's always like you're on the toilet, you're on the couch, whatever. So you're not at your highest point. You're kind of living your gag reel and you're looking at everyone else's greatest hits. And what do you see? You see the soccer mom on your son's team in a bikini. Oh, she's in Aruba. Do you send her a message in her DMs and say, hey, you look hot in a bikini? No, you say, wow, how was Aruba? Looks like a great time. Where'd you guys stay? Now, totally benign entry point. Nothing wrong with that, but what happens? It starts a conversation. And that conversation, suddenly you're around another person that you're having some intimacies with, some secrets with, some laughs with. And it's not a long jump from that to infidelity, to actual infidelity. So
one of the things I think, is that we hear here and that we understand is infidelity is like the final stage, right? It's the final stage that shows up, but it's what everybody thinks about when they think about divorce, or at some point, even if it's not the reason for the divorce, people think maybe that was going on behind the scenes. And what I like that I'm hearing here is that there's so many other things that lead up to that. And those are the things that we should discuss. Those are the things that we need to kind of put our perspective on. Now, twofold that I'd like to bring up here is current times. He's talking a lot about social media, and you're going to hear that back and forth, how that can be destructive, but also just it exploits the human mind. It exploits what has always happened, infidelity, but it makes it easier. So we want to talk about current issues that people are going through that are causing pressures and friction on relationships. And then we're going to also, anchor this back into what the actual blueprint of marriage is all about, what the design is all about.
Fundamentally, I think we're cheating with the just massive number of people we're interacting with now. I mean, and online, these devices, we all have a supercomputer in our pocket, guys. Like, come on. You think our biology was designed to have that many mating choices out there? You've talked about this a million times on this show. The truth is that we have created such simple conditions for infidelity. It used to take some effort. There was a home phone bill. You couldn't call from home. You had to use a payphone. Listen, you want to get a laugh. Listen to Stevie Wonder's song, Part-Time Lover. Sometime. It was a song about a guy talking to his lover, and he was like, call up, ring once, hang up the phone to let me know you made it home. Like all the weird hoops people had to jump through to cheat. Now you'd be like, yeah, send me a text when you get in so I know you got in safely. Like you can be sitting across from your spouse cheating, and what are you doing? Oh, I'm looking up that restaurant we're going to this weekend. I want to see what's on the menu. Like, you can come up with a million simple excuses that are in no way going to create red flags. So I think fundamentally we're cheating with the people around us like we always did, except the number of people around us has exponentially grown. So that makes it, far more appealing and far more challenging to infidelity proof your marriage.
Yeah. Although scrutinize the coworkers first, or have them work somewhere with lots of ugly people, maybe.
It's entirely possible. Well, I do say in one of my chapters that a lot of people are sleeping with the nanny, and I say if you think hiring an unattractive nanny is going to solve that problem, I would point you to Arnold Schwarzenegger's situation, because his then wife and the person who he was sleeping with, if you look at the two of them in terms of rankings of attractiveness, there's a disparity there. So.
Okay, so we think about things like children in the divorce. We think about things like the things that we're going to lose. We think about what are people going to think of us, and most of the time we think about those things when you're in the middle of it. I would say most people that I speak to, and I'll speak on this subject, I'll use myself as the example, being that I've been through 2 of these bad boys. You don't think about any of those factors, as heavily or at all before you engage in the relationship, before you engage in sex, never, and before you go ahead and get married. You don't think about those things. And if they do cross your mind, you kind of put them at the bottom of the list because you're so sometimes infatuated, sometimes just in love, sometimes you're just so caught up in the moment, sometimes you're just eager to be in that relationship or in that circumstance. And if I'm using myself for an example, my first divorce was very young. So we got married young and divorced young. And, I want to take responsibility for both of these because, we have a short period of time here and the other person can't speak for themselves. So I'll just tell you what I did wrong. First one, I was young, didn't understand the blueprint or the what marriage actually is at all, even if it wasn't just God's design for marriage. I didn't understand what I was getting into. I didn't understand the responsibility load. I didn't understand what love was. I was just, that young guy that was just head over heels on whatever I wanted to do, whether it was a girl, whether it was work, whether it was, kids, whether it was, business, whatever it was. I was just 110% on everything. King Kong couldn't do anything to me. So I rushed into that, got myself into something that wasn't correct. And it also wasn't something that I could control the way that I thought I would be able to. So that dispersed by the time I was 22. But, I wasn't thinking at all of the repercussions. deeply enough. I came from a broken marriage, so of course I thought about not wanting to put future children through divorce. And I thought to myself, I'll do anything I can possibly do. I will be the most selfless person in the world to keep this together. Yet I wasn't the one that broke it up. I wasn't in control of that. I didn't understand that, I wasn't in control of that marriage. Ultimately, God's in control, but also the other person that you attach yourself to is a free individual to do what they want to do. So that was one. Number two, rushed into something. This is more recent. We met online. I was really eager to get married, and I was really eager to I understood the blueprint for marriage. I understood what God designed it to be. And we're going to expand on that in a moment. But I want to, shit on myself for a moment here, just so you can understand where I'm coming from. So I understood it, and I understood that I really wanted to, have a union that was, in my mind, going to be glorifying to God in the way that her and I both came together with that same precept. We were both putting him first in that union, thinking that this is what we wanted to do together. Well, let me just share with you, that's also not something that is going to keep a marriage together. You see, because there's difficulties within marriage. You're hearing it with James here. And when you go through what he talks about, you can really see through experience, he's seen so many divorces. In my particular experience, even coming into that marriage recent, right? And again, rushed into it, got married within 6 months. I understand, mistake. She didn't even want to do it that quick. I was, pushing. And we didn't sleep together. That was another reason I was pushing so hard. Is like, we need to get married. I ain't going to make it, So we get together. In my mind, I wasn't thinking I can control things. And I thought because I was following God's blueprint that he would bless it. I knew it wasn't for sure, but I just assumed this would be my best odds if I tried to follow his blueprint. Well, that didn't work out, because I rushed into it. I still had a lot of work to do on myself. I've had my issues in the past, like we all do, and she was kind of not forthcoming with who she was as a person. So you mix my alcoholic drunk ass with her secretive ass, boom, we exploded within about 5 months, right? So that was sad and it was pathetic to go through it. And it was an embarrassment, not for me. I mean, it was embarrassing, but it was an embarrassment in the idea that we came together clearly telling everybody, we're doing this because we understand what marriage is. It's really about a living, breathing representation of the church, or excuse me, of the gospel. That, we have Christ in the church, and then the representative of that is husband and wife. So we kind of, put our flag up on that, and then it fell apart so quick. It was an embarrassment to me, and then I take personal accountability. Oh, maybe I was drinking too much, this and that. And it was none of those things. I mean, yeah, alcohol is bad, but that's not something that was the issue there. It was that we rushed into it and we thought to ourselves, I'll speak for myself. I thought if I follow God's blueprint, that will overpower our sin nature, because I had my sins I came to the table with. She had her sins she came to the table with. And it wasn't about a he said, she said. Nobody really did anything wrong. We just rushed into something and it exploded. So these are some examples of what I've been through because I wasn't taking the time prior to getting into this union. And it doesn't, we're talking about divorce, so marriage, but we can also apply this to long distance, keep saying that, serious relationships, like, long-term relationships, even if you don't go down to the courthouse and get married. Same concept. It's still a marriage. In God's eyes, once you have sex, you're married, baby. So we'll deal with that later. Point being, if we don't take the time to look at how it can end, to look at the end and say, if we don't pay attention to what this is, and we don't see some of the mistakes that all the other people that we're just like them, we're individuals, but we have the same shortcomings. When we're faced with the same obstacles and circumstances, we're human too, and we're going to probably behave like the majority, right? The statistics will show us how humans behave with these obstacles and difficulties in life. And they'll also tell you how humans, when they're together, when they're in a one flesh union, when they're working on this as a team, and you are faced with an obstacle, now we really can see how it is, how humans behave statistically. When you have two people together and you're hearing the statistics right here, 56% fail, right? And it's a lot of pressure on these things. So we want to look at the back end and we want to kind of backdate this so that we can give our children a better opportunity. We don't need any more separations. We don't need any more split homes on these kids. We got enough difficulties as is. So take it from me, who's been through two and has lost no hope. I'll be married again, but not until I've sought out God's design blueprint and then worked on myself, understood that I'm the problem. I'm the one that has the shortcomings that I need to work on personally. That way, when I come to the table, I have a stable value proposition for the other person in myself. I know how God designed it, but I'm a failure on God's design. And I'm going to fail on that again at the same time by pursuing Him, by pursuing His precepts and His character. Now I have more stability, boundaries, and an understanding of how my failures can affect another person. So that's me working on myself, but then that's huge. But understanding God's design for the marriage is even bigger and more important before you start working on yourself. Because if you're working on yourself, but you don't understand what you're working towards, if you have the wrong blueprint and you're preparing yourself to go into that union, but the union that you're preparing yourself for isn't the union that you thought it was, now you're going to prepare yourself for the wrong setup that'll probably lead to a disillusion. See what I mean? So it's those twofold that we want to look at. And I don't think there's too many people better than this guy, James, as of right now, just to be your entry point to understand if you're in a marriage and it's tough, check this guy out. If you're thinking about getting married, check this guy out. If you've never been married and you don't like it at all and you think it's retarded, check this guy out, because he's going to clarify to you, probably agreeing with the people that have never been married, why they didn't get married, right? But he too also is a kind of an objective guy. He'll stay in the middle of the line. He's not going to be saying a yay or a nay on people if they should get married. He's just telling you what it looks like. You see what I mean? So as we follow up here, I want to show you some scripture on exactly what we're talking about with God's blueprint for marriage.
Yeah. Well, I suppose getting an unattractive nanny, if nanny's a ground zero for cheating, doesn't necessarily protect you from cheating. It just damages your self-esteem when you find out that it's happened.
Right. And I don't think anything 100% protects you from cheating. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that it's always good to have a little bit of that sword of Damocles hanging over your head. It keeps you on your toes. I mean, I've said before, like, you're a little kid and they tell you cross on the green and not in between, and look both ways before you cross the street. Don't smoke cigarettes. Try to exercise. Don't eat too much sugar.
Don't fuck the nanny.
Yeah, don't fuck the nanny. And you think, okay, I've got some control over things, and then at some point they tell you about aneurysms. Where like, what is it? Well, you're just there and then you're dead. Wait, what? Like, well, I'll see it coming. No, you'll just die. Well, okay. Well, what can I do to prevent it? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Well, is there anything I could do? Yeah, no, not really. It's just eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Like, that's it. And so you can respond to that by saying, well, if there's nothing I can do to 100% prevent myself from just spontaneously dying, then I might as well just smoke them if you got them, get out there and just do whatever the hell you want. But I think we all know that that's not the way to do it. There is something to be said for the benefit that comes with being vibrantly healthy, even if it's not a guarantee that you're not going to be, perfectly healthy your entire life, and then death is still inevitable. Look, all relationships, all marriages end. All of them. They end in death or divorce, but they all end. So the question is, it's one of the only things in the world that you say, I really hope this ends in death, but it's true. Like, you really hope your marriage ends in death, but 56% of them currently end in divorce. And that's not accounting for the percent of them that don't end in divorce, but end in misery, that end in staying together with someone who you're very unhappy with, who doesn't love you or make you feel like the best version of yourself, and you don't make them feel particularly good, but you're just staying together for the kids or because you don't want to give half your shit away. And I don't know that that's, I don't know that that's a win, but even if that's 10%, I think I'm being generous, 10%. Now you got a technology that fails 66% of the time. That's insane. That's insane.
What is your position around kids. I've had Brad Wilcox on from the Institute for Family Studies recently. His new book, Get Married, might be the antithesis to a lot of the insights that we get today. But one of his key insights, same comes from Melissa Carney as well, in her book, The Two-Parent Advantage, or Two-Parent Privilege, is that kids who grow up with loving mum and dad or two parents in the household, ideally biological ones, because you've got a 50 times increase in childhood mortality, infant mortality risk if you've got a non-biological parent in the house, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What do you think? Stay together for the kids? What's your belief there?
I don't believe that. Because I believe, having read, The Unexpected Legacy of Divorce and some of the other books out there that talk about the impact of divorce in a long-term way on children, because there's a lot of data out there about outcomes for children of divorce. And what it basically distills down to is that parental conflict is bad for kids. Now, there happens to be a fairly strong correlation between parental conflict and divorce, but it does not have to be. People can effectively co-parent and have a mother and a father who are devoted to their care, who are cooperative co-parents, who are good with each other, communicate with each other, work in a unified manner for the best interest of the children, but don't reside in the same household. And so I find it very hard to believe that two genuinely unhappy people residing in the same home are going to do a better job raising children and modeling relationships to those children, who then a couple that has the insight to say, look, we don't love each other in the very particular way that married people are supposed to. That doesn't mean we don't love each other. It means there's a lot of people I love I wouldn't want to be married to. So what we're saying, and the way that I often tell my clients to explain their divorce to their children, no matter what their age, is to say we don't love each other in the way that married people are supposed to. Because I don't think it's healthy to tell children, I don't love your mother, because they love the mother. So why would you say that? I don't love your mother the way married people. We don't love each other the way married people are supposed to, but we both love you. And you're always going to have one mom and one dad, and we're always going to be a family. And that's the truth. I tell my clients, from day one, whether it's a knockdown, drag out litigation or the friendliest divorce in the world, I tell them you're going to have grandkids together if you have kids. A divorce with children is a knife fight in a closet. And if you just start stabbing because you think you're going to stab your ex, you're going to stab your kids, you're going to hurt yourself, you're going to ruin everything in your life. It makes a lot of sense to just stand down, focus on the kids, get them out of the conflict as much as possible, and try to live the best life you can.
What does stabbing in the closet constitute when it comes to kids and separation?
Well, I think, creating loyalty binds for children, alienation. I mean, it's a spectrum, right? There's straight alienation, right? Where you say to a child, it's not okay to love dad. He's a bad person, That's a special kind of psycho. There's a lot of them. But it's more common that it's a little more subtle than that. So it takes a special kind of crazy person to say, your dad's a bad person. But a lot will do this. Hello? Here, it's your dad. Okay, you just said dad's a bad person. You roll your eyes when you hand the kid the phone. You just said dad's a bad person. Same thing. Kid comes home from a visit with dad. And you say, oh, did you have a good time? Yeah. What'd you guys do? Oh, we had so much fun. We went to the park. Oh, that's great. All right, we'll go upstairs and wash up. We're going to have dinner shortly. Or, oh, you're back. Oh, I missed you so much. Did you miss me too? Yeah. Where did you go? Oh, you went to the park today? Dad, it's so cold out. Dad took you to the park. I guess maybe he wasn't thinking about it. So, boy, I missed you so much. I'm so glad you're home. You must be so happy to be. What are you doing? You're telling this kid it's not okay to be happy with dad. You're telling this kid, dad is something that I'm worried about you being with, but you're not explicitly saying it. If you ask that child, if a judge asks that child, does mom talk bad about dad? The truthful answer is no. She doesn't. She didn't say one bad word, but she sent the message home clearly. It's just, listen, we all know what this is like. I mean, you say to your girlfriend, how you doing? Fine. Oh, okay. Cool. No, you're not. Well, what's the matter? No, nothing. It's fine. Okay. So you're getting it across. You're getting your point across. And that's what it looks like to harm your children. I'll take it a step further. Something that's really come into sort of the judicial and legal zeitgeist right now is this idea of what's called negative gatekeeping. which is a much more common form of alienation, which really is you could have been helpful, but you were so much more. Like you had an opportunity to build up or bolster your co-parent with the child, and you just let it fall flat instead. You could have been helpful, but you choose not to be
What's an
helpful
example
at
of that?
all. Great example is your partner, your co-parent gets into a new relationship. Now, look, none of us are going to be thrilled when our ex gets involved with somebody new, but it's a reality of life. 86% of people are remarried within 5 years of their divorce. So the likelihood of people remarrying or getting into serious intimate relationships after they divorce, very, very high. So why, when the child comes home and says, oh, I met, mommy's new friend, Tom, you can say, oh, that's great. Was he nice? Oh, that's great. I'm so glad you liked him. That was it. What'd you guys do? Oh, that's really good. Or even better, gold standard, the parents communicate with each other and say, hey, he's going to meet my new boyfriend, Tom. Tom's a mechanic. He's a really nice guy. I thought maybe he could even help fix our kid's bike or whatever. And then when the kid says, oh, I met Tom, you go, oh, that's great. I heard you were going to meet Tom. I heard he's so nice. I heard he knows how to fix bikes. That's awesome. So you could be helpful. And instead, I met, mom's friend, Tom. Okay. Nothing, just nothing helpful, nothing to tell this child because look, children look to us about how to feel about things. I mean, it's why it's like the classic joke when a little kid falls down, they fall. If you go, oh my God, are you okay? They instantly start crying. Whereas if they fall down and you go, oh, oopsie, you're okay. They're going to get, oh, I guess I'm okay, because they look to adults as to how am I feeling? So it's really the same thing as a co-parent. Look, you're supposed to love your kids more than you hate your ex. So really what I always tell people, who you marry, I mean, if you have a prenup, marry whoever the hell you want. But if you don't have a prenup, who you marry, the worst they can really do is hurt you financially. If you have a kid with someone, they could torture you for 20 plus years easily, and in real ways, like really profound ways, because most people love their children more than themselves, and thankfully most people love their children more than they hate their ex. But I will tell you, most of the people in my office who screw their kids up really badly in the divorce, they don't mean to. I don't believe that people are, engage in evil behavior because they're evil. I think they mistake it for happiness. I think they have the permission of their own conscience. And I think as a culture, we really do glorify, that sense of like, oh, screw your ex, screw them, they're an idiot, as opposed to looking at relationships like chapters in a long book, and that, yeah, look, you know what? We loved each other for a time. We loved each other in the way we loved each other. We did our best. And maybe it wasn't the best we could do, but it was the best we could do at the time.
James Sexton, the guy that you're listening to right here, just so you have a little background on him, so you know why I would recommend taking his words of advice, as something that you take to heart. So it says he's been, let's see here. I'm sorry. He's an American attorney focusing his practice exclusively in divorce and family law in the New York metropolitan area. In 2001, less than a year after his admission to the New York State Bar, he opened law offices of James Sexton PC, where he has remained managing partner for over 2 decades. Sexton had a reoccurring segment, How to Stay in Love, on the Steve Harvey Show. Sexton has been quoted on divorce issues by Access Hollywood, Time Magazine, Newsweek, Glamour, The Rachel Ray Show, New York Times, Business Insider, and a variety of podcasts, including Les Friedman, School of Greatness with Lewis Howes, Matthew Cox, Soft White Underbelly, Goop, NPR, Lifehacker, and Phone a Friend with Jesse Cruikshank, whatever. Okay, I just gave you the whole thing. Just enough so you understand where he's coming from. He speaks on this a lot. It's not that this gives him authority that he's been on all these shows. It's just that he's relatable. So check him out. And he's got the experience. He's been doing divorces for, over 20 years. And that's why I thought he'd be a good one to listen to. All right. So a couple scriptures for you. Number one, this is going to maybe be a little new for people. Marriage has nothing to do with the two people that are engaged in that marriage at its blueprint level. we're the building blocks. We're the ones that are um, the what it was designed for, but the design itself is not about those two people. The design of marriage itself is to be a living, breathing representation of the gospel in the way that God tells us in what you would see in Ephesians 6, that husband and wife are to resemble Christ and the church. So that's where you get that connection. And then you also understand that, and I'm going to read to you right now to John 17, that in the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, God gives the bride to the Son as a love gift for his work in coming and wrapping himself in flesh and being the redeemer of God's creation, humanity, right? So the creation of humanity, God always knew we were going to sin, and he always knew that he was going to have his Son, the second person of the Trinity, as the redeemer of those people and as the head of those people. He's the only one capable of doing it because he is God. So the idea behind this is marriage is actually all about the love gift between father and son, and that is the bride. So the son's bride is the church. The son did the work for the church by dying on the cross and redeeming her for her sins. And that's what we believe by faith, that we are redeemed and justified by the work of Christ alone. Now, the marriage is what God chooses to symbolize what has been done between what Christ has done and what his prize is, what his bride is the church. And that is our union. So at the end of all time, right, the second coming of Christ, he consummates that union. Get the sex out of your mind. He becomes one with that bride. All of Christians throughout all time. That's what the second coming is about. That's what you read in Revelation. So that's a big summary, very quick. We're not doing that in this video. We'll do more for it. But to give you the idea, that's what marriage is about. It's about Christ and the church, which is a living, breathing representation of the gospel. That is what the gospel is all about, is what Christ has done. And it's also about God glorifying himself. And this is the final piece of that before I read this. God glorifies himself through the power of the Trinity and the love gift of his creation, all humanity and all elect believers, by allowing himself as the second person in the Trinity to do all the work so that all the glory goes to himself. So you're not in the picture. And marriage is actually just, again, the outward expression. It's the expression that we get to live out as humans of that beautiful, beautiful, incredible gospel that God glorifies himself through the second person of the Trinity and his person and work on the cross for his bride, God's creation, you and me in his image, the church. There's nothing better than this. There's nothing that can ever be better than this. That's what I wish everybody could understand, because to be able to represent that in our marriages there's nothing that could ever be a higher privilege or honor. You're already in the image of God. That's massive. That's the biggest honor you could imagine. Now you get to have an even higher privilege of being a living, breathing representation of the gospel itself with another human being in marriage, in that union. That's why marriage is so hard to do, because it is something that is the highest privilege that we can ever ask from God. Now, as I go through this, just remember, it doesn't mean that, because I say that marriage is not about two people, that it's not all the things that you had in your mind: romance, happiness, make each other happy forever, have kids, have a beautiful life. Those are all downstream benefits of what it is at its core. The problem is we all want the downstream benefits without acknowledging what it is at its core, which is why you get temporary benefits, right? Temporary things that are fantastic about, being with somebody, whether you're married or not. You sleep with them, then all of a sudden you're one flesh union. Now, with that, you get a bunch of benefits that are temporary, right? Now, the idea behind when we look at God as the designer and we see his blueprint is that if we understand that the marriage union is not about us, then we will stop thinking that it's forever. We'll realize any amount of time that we get, whether it's 5 months or 25 years or your whole life, is a blessing that we got to partake in this high honor that God gives us to represent his gospel in a living, breathing union. It's incredible. Whether you get a day of it, every moment you had of that is incredible when you understand what it was designed for, and what a beautiful thing of all time, even after this life, when Christ comes again. No, there's no marriage in heaven. Nobody will ever get that opportunity to be a living, breathing representation of the gospel that everybody, what all time and everything has hinged upon, Christ on that cross. That's what everything has ever been about and will ever be about in the future. It'll always be to the glory of God. And we get to represent that with our human, sinful bodies, which is why it's so difficult, right? The sin is what makes it not, it's what allows us to mess it up. We would never mess it up if we understood it and didn't have the sin issue, right? So understand that all the blessings we get that you hold close to your heart about marriage and just romance and beautiful relationships, those are what you can pray and ask God to give to you and to bless the marriage with. And then your secondary prayer could be, please allow me and thank you for giving me this union, and please bless it and allow me to have it for as long as you deem possible for your own glory. And I'm going to work my ass off, every ounce of my soul, body, mind, to keep it holy, to keep it pure, because now I understand what it is. And I will die on this hill because it's such a blessing and you're giving me such a privilege. That's how we should pray. That's how we should look at marriage. But of course, we don't think that because we don't understand it. And so to start, let me share with you this John 17, starting on verse 6. I have manifested your name to the people whom you gave me. And this, if you're not familiar, John 17:6, this is Christ talking, and he's praying to God. I have manifested your name to the people whom you gave me out of the world. Yours they were, and you gave them to me, and they have kept your word. Now they know that everything that you have given me is from you. For I have given them the words that you gave me, and they have received them and have come to know in truth that I came from you. And they have believed that you sent me. I am praying for them. I am not praying for the world, but for those whom you have given me. For they are yours. All mine are yours, and yours are mine, and I am glorified in them. And I am no longer in the world, but they are in the world, and I am coming to you. Holy Father, keep them in your name, which you have given me, that they may be one, even as we are one. While I was with them, I kept them in your name, which you have given me. I have guarded them, and not one of them has been lost except the son of destruction, that the scripture might be fulfilled. Okay, I'll stop right there. So much more to read here, but what to focus on here is the unity between father and son, the submission roles, and then also knowing that if there's an order, not a value, but an order. And also the idea that this is a gift, that all of us, all the elect, were God's, that were given to Christ for his own glory, right? So John 17:6, check it out, continue to expand on that. We'll do many more videos on this, but I wanted to keep this one short and sweet to give you kind of an idea and just a small taste of what's to come. So one other thing with James here, we have to pay attention. Okay, we have to pay attention to things like social media, and we have to pay attention to the human nature that we all struggle with, whether it's temptation, whether it's just being selfish, whether it's addiction problems, whether it's just lack of empathy and lack of effort, like just being impotent, because you could go down the line. It could be anything from someone who's a really good on the outskirt, taking care of their business with their kids and with their wife and everything, but they're cheating in the background. Or you could have somebody else who's like a complete, the best heart in the world, but they struggle with being impotent and they don't know how to go to work, right? That's another one that just ain't going to work when you have a one flesh union. You could have alcohol troubles. Like I told you in mine, I would, trust me, I still drink, but at the time I didn't do enough work on myself. And that was something that even though I had everything else in order, it just gave me a setback. Enough to where the instead of trying to work through things, because I was hindering myself by not being able to understand that by me trying to work on things but coping with alcohol, ruined everything, right? And again, I'm not a proponent of abstinence or I hope everybody's having a drink today. But, we got to address those things. If we're going to drink or we're going to do drugs, you smoke weed or whatever it is, or those are things you can work through. Infidelity, no, but those are things that you could work on yourself. When I'm saying work on yourself as a part of the blueprint, you got to be a strong piece of the building blocks in the blueprint. If you have your shortcomings, you better fucking figure it out, because now you're attached to somebody else and your shortcomings are going to be something that draws the whole thing down, And when we hear James talk about this stuff, he gives you some insight from the back end. And it's, I think, so important as we go into a time where most people aren't even going to get married anymore. They're going to hear these statistics, myself included, and be like, why would I ever get married? I'll tell you right now, I would never get married again through the state, okay, like paperwork, unless there was a reason behind it. I want, at least for myself, it's more important to me that whoever I'm talking to, whether it's in my relationship or if I'm talking to somebody else about relationships, or maybe we're just doing a biblical exposition, that people understand what marriage is, because it's a blessing. We're not all owed that blessing, and it'd be better off that you don't partake in these things than if you don't understand it. See what I mean? And the idea behind this is we think, oh, here's what I hope everybody let's just blow this out of the water. If you're a Christian and you are just like, oh, I just, I know I'm not supposed to have sex before I get married, and I'm just a little, I don't really know. And all of a sudden you ruin everything. You're not even understanding what marriage is. You don't know how to do a courtship or a dating situation because you're awkward. You're hiding sex, or you are having sex. Are you not having sex? Should we have sex? Do I break up because I had sex? All you Christians out there know what I'm talking about. Fuck all that shit, okay? And go ahead and go to the Sermon on the Mount and understand that if you've even lusted after somebody, you might as well have already had sex with them. And I'm not giving you free reign to go fuck everybody, okay? I'd love to do that too. But no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that that's the least important thing, okay? That's like trying to come and tell somebody, okay, I know you love to eat. Okay, I know you like food, but, no food at all until you learn how to eat properly. Don't you eat at all until you learn how to not overeat, until you learn how to actually have a healthy diet. I'm not going to let you touch a bite, okay? You don't eat at all. Probably a stupid analogy, but at the same time, for a lot of people, that's just like sex. You ain't going to not do it, okay? And especially with nowadays, when you got devices on every, like he's talking about, he didn't even talk about porn. Trust me, it ain't no better if you're sitting at home watching porn than if you're thinking, well, oh, okay, well, I'm not having sex with another person, but I sit at home and watch porn. No, absolutely not. And I guarantee all the Christians out there are struggling with that exact thing. Or they're just like, well, I'm just going to put my head in the sand and just go do whatever I got to do. Do you see how all these lead to bad things? And in the Christian community, they all lead to bad things. In the non-Christian community, people that are dealing with sleeping with each other and having sex outside of marriage, it's not something that they discuss as an issue, yet it causes massive issues in the relationship. Massive issues in the relationship. The sex that we have with one another needs to be the most powerful, impactful, emotional, physical, intimate thing. And from there on out, like I said, in God's eyes, you're married. Therefore, if you go sleep with somebody, you're going to deal with those repercussions. Whether it's now, whether it's later, you don't know how the consequences are going to go. But all these divorce parameters, they're going to hit you at some level. You might be like, oh, not if I have a one-night stand. Maybe not, but maybe you got chlamydia, or maybe you got HIV, maybe you got something else. Maybe she got pregnant. You don't know. There's a risk there. You see what I mean? There's always a risk. Now, none of the things that we talk about when it comes to God's design for marriage and blueprint is in a legalistic sense. I'm not saying, here's his blueprint. If you don't do it, you're fucked. I'm not saying that. I'm saying this is the blueprint. You're not under legalism. You're under the law of liberty, meaning Christ did accomplish his work on the cross. You don't have to deal with these blueprints, principles, and laws in a sense that you are feeling like, if I don't do this, I'm going to hell, or I'm not a Christian. Get your head out of that ass. Okay, get your head out of your own ass thinking like that. Okay, you can't accomplish any of God's commands that way. Why would you deal with marriage that way? You need to pay attention to it the way that you're paying attention to everything else, and understand that the blueprint is what you need to spend time and effort thinking about, meditating on, and knowing why that blueprint is there, How does it apply to today's day and age? We're not changing the blueprint for today's day and age. We're understanding how the blueprint applies to today's day and age. And then you apply those principles and you pray your ass off, saying, God, please help me not to go and deviate away from your design, your principle, your character, your law, because I know that's bad for me and the other person and possibly my future children. That's the Christian way of understanding how to do this. If you're not a Christian, I don't give a shit what the fuck you do. Go do your thing, but these principles are all the same, and follow a guy like James, who's dealing with what happens on the tail end of a divorce and what you might be dealing with even if you're on the tail end of a long distance relation. There I go again. Can't stop saying it. Serious relationship. Because let's say you move in together and everything. When you separate, you got a lot of the same headache, especially if you had a kid, then you're in the same thing. You might be dealing with the courts. You never know. So they really do tie in together. And as we finish on this whole thing, just know that for anybody out there who is dealing with thoughts of divorce, been through it twice, do not do it. Because you must remember, if you've heard anything on this and if you're still listening, the marriage was never about you and the other person. So if you seek out the person that it was about, God, okay, in a Trinitarian way, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, I don't mean to get too complex, but think about it in that sense. You need to search him out in Scripture to understand this. Call me, text me, DM me. I will talk to you about it. I would love to talk to you about it. Okay, coming from somebody who's in a humble spot that's been divorced, I can't give you the answer. I can only point you to the right area of the one who could give you the answer. I can help you with that, okay? Don't do it. Now, if you're somebody who's not married and you're thinking about getting married, don't fucking do that unless you understand all the things I just said. Unless you understand the blueprint for marriage and you understand what marriage is all about, do not get married. Don't do it. You're going to fuck yourself, You're going to be part of that 56% plus another 10%, whatever he was talking about, that end up getting divorced or unhappy. And if you're somebody who doesn't care about marriage, again, I don't like it either. Okay, if it was up to me, I wouldn't be wanting to do it, right? I like the design of it, but it's so dang hard to do. I just want to go have fun too, just like you. And I did for many years, and it was fun. I would never lie about it, But being that I can understand that there's a better place. Where does it always end for the people that don't give a shit about marriage? It always ends shitty. You're always done with one and you're on to the next, and you're like, damn, I gotta fucking start over again. When am I gonna stop this? I'm getting old, right? When's it gonna end? It's stupid. You're just gonna keep going through one to the next, to the next, to the next. Pretty soon you're gonna start settling for some shit that you don't want to be with, right? That's not a good ending. That's not a fun ending, right? So there's a higher level of joy to be found in the design that God has for that union. And it's not about sex. We all know that it gets boring anyways after you have sex with somebody for a period of time. So if you want there to be more meaning to that, to where it doesn't get boring and you can have a union for a longer period of time, you got to understand why sex was even put into that union. There's a deeper meaning to that too. Another video for you. But anyway, so I covered whatever I could. I was supposed to be keeping this short and I can't help myself. But we'll see you on the next one. You guys have a good one now.